Hugh Freeze shared over the weekend the newcomers that are impressing him the most.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me, as he does every Monday, is the Lindsay Crosby of auburndaily.com and a bunch of other places. If you want Auburn basketball SEC championship content, it all happened yesterday. It's already up on this audio feed or on the YouTube channel. However you're consuming this content, it's already up. So if you want that first, go check all of that out. Both bracket reaction and, of course, reaction to Auburn winning the SEC championship. It's all there. So some media heard from Hugh Freeze this weekend. This was Saturday. A lot of the recruiting writers, Auburn Daily's own Brian Smith was there. He sent me the audio. But he met with some reporters that were there covering recruiting, Lindsay. And of course, a lot of the questions were about recruiting. But he was asked about the newcomers and transfers that were impressing him the most throughout spring practice. And I always think it means a little bit. It's like if he quickly answers with one guy and doesn't just list, 3 or 4 guys quickly and then kind of go back, I think there is some weight to it. He came out and said Thompson, of course, referring to Jaron Thompson, the transfer safety from Texas. He talked a lot about his leadership, talked a lot about how he goes through practice and what all he brings to the defense. Jaron Thompson is a guy that we've thrown out a lot, but that has been an addition, a signing that has flown under the radar a little bit. Jaron Thompson, the transfer safety from Texas.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of the only guys listed as defensive back. I think we figured out that was a transfer portal thing.
Yeah.
But it's a guy coming in. It makes sense that he would name him. I mean, I think he's classified as a senior. He's got experience at a high level in college football. It makes sense he would be named. But I think given the questions you had about the defensive backfield in general, because of the guys you lost that were at the combine we saw, they're going to be at the draft that you hear about, it's nice to know that the very first player that he mentioned out of all 100 guys that are at practice every day was a safety, because it gives you some confidence that, okay, you're going to be fine back there. Like the actual ceiling of where your defensive backs are going to play, that's still a question because you don't know who's going to be where and everything. Right. But your floor should be high enough where it's not going to hurt you. And I think that was the biggest takeaway I had when you sent me that audio was, oh, wow, literally the very first guy. I don't have to worry about this anymore. I think that was the big takeaway for me.
Yeah, I think so. And when the second name, and we'll discuss in a second, the second name he said was also defensive back, which is encouraging. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it means that this coaching staff is paying more attention to the defensive backs because there are so many questions. And not questions in a negative way where you're concerned about it. It's just this position group needs a lot of focus because there's a lot of talent. You got to make the right decision to figure out where to put certain folks. It seems like Keontae Scott wants to play corner, and it seems like this coaching staff is honoring that. Mm-hmm. And he's probably looking at salaries of guys being signed and guys being drafted into the NFL, and it's like the corners are making money. If that's it, I don't blame him at all. And that's also what he was recruited to do out of the JUCO level a few years ago. And if that's what he wants to play, let him play it. And so if Keontae Scott stays outside at corner, Jaron Thompson's impact is huge, because I have heard some rumblings about him playing some nickel. I do think he's more of that natural free safety fit. Mm-hmm. He has the size to play nickel. He also has the size to kind of be that safety that walks up. But I think there are other guys on this roster that may do that better. I think he's more valuable to kind of be off the line of scrimmage a little bit. But I think Jaron Thompson is even more important if Keontae Scott truly does stay at outside corner.
Yeah, there's enough questions back there. I mean, you have Caleb Wooden coming back that got time last year, but there's plenty of questions. Nickel. Yeah, a lot of nickel too. And so a lot of these guys, I feel like if you're playing nickel as well, that means that they have a base level of confidence in your ability to cover passes. And so the thing you always worry about when you're looking at trying to figure out your safeties do you have any one-dimensional guys back there? Like guys who are just run stoppers or guys who can't defend the run. And the fact that they're cool with him coming up and playing nickel as well gives me, again, it shows the floor is raised enough where we don't need to worry about this. My big question, I guess, is how does everybody interplay as far as where they go? Does Caleb Harris, is he a guy that can impact the rotation? Are you just confident in the two? And like you said, the fact that they're paying so much attention to the safeties, we're assuming it's a good thing. Maybe it means that they have a higher level of concern than expected at this point in time in spring because they're looking to see more from these guys. I don't quite know. I'm going to assume, I'm a positive guy, I'm going to assume it's fine, but there is some genuine question there about why are they so focused on the safeties? Have these two guys popped, or is it just, no, we're paying a lot of attention to safety right now?
Yeah, and you teed up the second guy perfectly. Caleb Harris, number 18, the freshman. And he's kind of the freshman safety we didn't talk about a ton. We kind of spent more time like talking about, Kinsley Faustin, what kind of impact could he make. But we saw Caleb Harris make an awesome pass breakup the other day. I guess this would have been last Tuesday during our viewing window. And so can he kind of have that impact consistently? He batted the ball that ended up eventually being an interception. And I don't know. So the fact that he came out and said Caleb Harris quickly after saying Jaron Thompson, maybe he's given a nod to the defensive back room there. But Caleb Harris is a guy that sounds like he's flying under the radar a little bit as far as guys that we did not talk about enough going into spring camp.
I mean, he's a Thompson kid. It's hard to say like Thompson kids can't perform in the SEC when they get there.
That's right.
The thing that I worry about is safety feels like, unlike some of the other positions where it's a lot of one-on-one stuff, right?
Yeah.
Safety feels like it is you have to know more about the defense as a whole. You have to be able to see more of what the offense is doing. It feels like the barrier to entry at safety is higher for a true freshman than for a lot of other positions. Now, obviously, he enrolled in January. He was really accomplished in high school. He had like over 130 tackles, did everything. Tackles for loss, interceptions, pass breakups, fumble recoveries. He was all around the ball at Thompson. But it just feels like safety's a position that's naturally harder for a freshman to pick up because it's not like corner where you're just working against the guy in front of you or defensive
It's a lot of
end.
between the ears, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of mental stuff. And so the fact that he's getting shouted out early, is that a good thing that he is farther ahead than a typical freshman would be? Because if so, you feel really good. Is it something where nobody else is really flashing outside of Thompson, obviously? A lot of Thompson talk here. And so questions, but I'm excited about the fact that a guy who was seen as a very physical option at safety, like 6'1", 200 or so, the fact that he's flashing so much, I feel like is a really good thing for the ceiling of the Auburn defense.
Yeah, even if he's not a part of this year's rotation, or maybe he is truly, that 5th, 6th, or 7th defensive back in the rotation this year, they're going to lose a lot after this season. So the fact that, okay, maybe this is signaling Caleb Harris is the next in line of these Auburn safeties because they are going to lose, your Jaron Thompsons, Keontae Scott will leave, and we'll see what happens with some other guys that are upperclassmen. But this is a pretty young DB room after those first few guys. And so Caleb Harris making plays early, and I'm sure he's making them more than just outside of the one kind of viewing window that we got to see last week. But yeah, hats off to him. I think that's pretty telling. He was also prompted to ask about the wide receivers, Robert Lewis and Sam Jackson, the two transfer additions in the wide receiver room. And he just kind of, said that they've been solid. They've been good. He did add the note, Sam Jackson's still in the yellow jersey. We talked about that when Daryl and I reacted to the Tuesday viewing window last week. So it sounds like he's still got it on, but Freeze mentioned it was a shoulder issue and he's going through everything except for contact stuff right now, which is what we've seen in the window. It just, that hasn't changed. It sounds like.
Yeah. I think the big thing is going to be, we've talked so much. I'm really the one who's talked about it, but like how the chemistry you build in spring is so important. And I'm fine if he's in the jersey now, as long as he gets a week or two of full contact practices where Thorne and whoever else the quarterbacks are can practice throwing to him in real time, seeing how he adjusts to where defenders are. Because it felt like so much of this offense last year was the quarterback not having faith in where the receiver would be at what time or what he would do against whatever coverage. We've heard so much about how this offense, and it's different this year, but about how the offense required guys to read and react to what they were doing, and your quarterback and receiver need to be on the same page. And so I really want that jersey to come off and him to have live fire reps, because I feel like, given their history and given the physicality that he has, that there is options here for Auburn using him in a good way to start the year. And honestly, kind of thinking about what Robbie Ashford could have done if he had moved to receiver, but that's a different show.
Yeah, that is a different show. One that we may not ever do. But yeah, you're right. That is a different show for sure. All right, we will discuss the quarterback narrative, because I think the idea of there being a quarterback battle is starting to seem a little less real to me, Lindsay. And I want to give you a few of my reasons why, and you tell me if I'm reading into things too much. We discuss that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest, like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level. The Auburn Tigers, they can only be described as a Nissan Pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch, and they've created a lane for themselves, being the SEC tournament champs, claiming that top spot in the SEC. Obviously, Janai Broome should be decorated with all of these awards, and we'll see if it certainly happens. But you can take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Amazon Fire. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV allows you to have an amazing viewing experience with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides you access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Fire TV, they recently created these Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest news and videos from all of your favorite sports brands, like us here at Locked On. We have our Fire TV channel, so be sure to check that out. To learn more about Amazon Fire TV, visit amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Lindsay Crosby, our guest on this Monday edition of the show. The quarterback battle, to me, is starting to seem less real now. And let me give you my thoughts on this, because I want to lead this. I believe Auburn should simulate and force a quarterback competition. And I think the guy competing with Peyton Thorne should be Hank Brown. I think the coaching staff should do that.
Okay.
But you're seeing more social media posts from Auburn football with like Peyton Thorne mic'd up and kind of putting clips up of him throwing the football and talking to his teammates during practice and really promoting Peyton Thorne, which I do think the football program's social media should promote your quarterback. And then also Peyton Thorne being one of the first players that were made available to media. I just get the vibe that the messaging is behind Peyton Thorne early in spring. Do you think that matters? Am I reading too much into that, Lindsay?
I think your observations are valid. The question that I have is, I guess there's two questions I have. Is one, how much of the, I'm going to phrase it as a marketing push. We don't actually think it is, but phrase it as a marketing push. How much of that is designed to give fans some reassurances that he is in fact good enough to be the guy in 24? Like if he was a bum, they wouldn't actually promote him. So I guess that's question one.
That's
not really the main question, but I think number two is, how much do we think that those decisions are driven by intel from the coaching staff versus how much of that are just some creatives in a room in the athletics building, not even in the football complex, trying to figure out how do we promote this program during practice, right?
So The football social media team is different from all the other ones. That's why you see kind of a change and all that when there's a coach firing, and usually people either bring in their own folks or whatever. It's not like the people that work for Auburn athletics. Like you and I have a friend that is on the Auburn social media team, and he'll do different sports, and they all kind of do different sports, and football is separate. Football has its own team. Mm-hmm. And so I would believe that football communicates with the staff to some extent. It may not be Freeze. It may be, I don't know. But I do believe there's going to be more opportunity for communication there.
Fair enough.
But, to your first point, it's like if he was awful, they wouldn't do that. To your first point, like everybody wants to love their quarterback. Everybody. It's like I don't think it's a bad thing, but I'm not buying the whole yes, there's a quarterback battle happening this spring as much as I was. And Freeze was asked about it in his first media availability of the spring. I think it was Mike G that asked him. He's like, "Is there a quarterback battle?" And he said it's Peyton's to lose. It's like, okay, well, if anything is true about Freeze, is he is very honest to the media. And, I maybe we should take him at his word right now. It does seem like it's Peyton Thorne's job to lose.
Yeah, I could absolutely see a scenario where we consider it a quarterback battle because Hank Brown came on the show and said it was, and said he thought it was.
And Hank should approach it as if it is. And Peyton should as well.
Yeah.
And so should Walker, and so should Holden.
That is the way they should all treat it. But I could see a scenario where the social media team takes the cue from the thing that literally came out of Hugh Freeze's mouth and said, we're not necessarily going to do just the quarterback, but we're not going to be afraid to talk about one quarterback a lot more than the rest, simply because Hugh Freeze has said it is his job to lose. Because there's nothing, as a creative, there's nothing you would feel worse about than doing a bunch of stuff featuring a dude and then that guy not being the guy in fall. You would feel like an idiot. Yeah, so I guarantee you they wouldn't do this if they didn't think he was going to be the quarterback. And so I'm assuming it's based off of Hugh's comments, public comments on the record about the status of the battle. But to your point, I do think it's good that everybody treats this as a battle. Yeah. And I don't feel like this is one of those battles in name only. I feel like if Hank Brown is saying that he's treating this like a quarterback battle, I think we can all take that seriously. And I do think that this coaching staff would be prepared if there was one guy who was seemingly significantly better. I do feel like they'd give him the job, but it's something where you're going to have to significantly outproduce Peyton Thorne to be the guy, simply because they have said it's his job to lose. So he's the favorite. He's the default.
Yeah. I mean, that's what that means. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know if I'm buying as much that there is an open quarterback battle here. What are your thoughts in the comments down below? Very interested, because this is a very polarizing topic. Mm-hmm. Auburn baseball struggled this past weekend. They struggled. I mean, let's just put it clear. What's their path out of it? Do we think they'll get out of it? And the schedule does get easier. We discuss all of that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. It's the best place to find qualified candidates for your business. Lindsay, if you could describe the characteristics of somebody, maybe a potential hire not on LinkedIn, how would you describe them?
Probably hard to reach, hard to get in touch with. Yeah. Probably not super reliable, and I don't even know if they're that qualified, because they're on, and they thought it was fine to go on inferior job search platforms.
That's right. Now, list a few characteristics or traits of somebody that you might find via LinkedIn Jobs.
Qualified, responsive, very smart with their choice of social media platforms.
Goats.
Yes. Incredibly valuable to your business and easy to reach.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn knows that small businesses, they're wearing so many hats, and so you may not have all the time and the resources. They're going to make it easy for you, and they're going to get you the best qualified candidates for your business. And you can post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Auburn baseball, they got swept at Vandy. And look, you and I talked about this a week ago, and you said that the first few series, the first few weekends of conference play are not stacked well for Auburn baseball. It only gets easier as the season goes on, Lindsay.
Yeah, it is at Vanderbilt, top 10 team in the country,
Yeah.
versus Arkansas, one of the best teams in the SEC, top 10 in the country. At Texas A&M, one of the top 10 teams in the country,
Yep.
and then versus Tennessee. And like none of that is incredibly easy. You don't get the stuff like you get State in the back half, you get Ole Miss at home, you get Missouri in the back half, Alabama in the back half. It's easier in the back half. At the same time, I don't know if I saw one of these three games being a run rule and Auburn being outscored by like 20 runs. I don't think I saw that coming this weekend. I thought it would be a 1-2 or 2-1 weekend. I did not think it'd be a sweep. And if I did not think it would be a sweep this way. So you got some work to do. You come home to face South Alabama. You don't come home. You go to Montgomery to play South Alabama on Tuesday, and then you host Arkansas this weekend.
Yeah. And Arkansas seems like a decent squad so far, for sure. So to put it lightly.
Yes.
I mean, we've seen Auburn teams historically under Butch Thompson's tenure here, they get better over the course of the season. And I mean, how many times do we have concerns about pitching? And then fourth or fifth weekend of SEC play, it's like, oh, okay, everything clicks. Everybody's in the right spot. Do you believe the arms are there in order for the staff to do that? Because, I mean, it seems like the arms and the situation is better now than it has been in previous Butch Thompson-led teams. Is there any concern in your mind of like, okay, yeah, they're not going to be able to figure it out?
I think here the situation is like in previous years, you've had to figure out who were options, period. Like, who do we have that can throw on Saturday?
Yeah,
just
right.
Gonzalez all the season, like all of that. This year, it's very much you have lots of options. You have to figure out who were the best options for that weekend. Chase Alsop has been sticking in as Friday night. You moved Carson Myers to Saturday. Gonzalez took off a week after getting blown up against UConn and pitched on Sunday. It's more about figuring out who is the right guy this year. And I do think there's other options they haven't tried in starting capacities yet. I do think Cam Tilley is an option you may see later on in the SEC play. I think you may move a Tuesday starter to the weekend. But it feels like if you're just trying to figure out the right guy versus find a guy, period, it shouldn't take as long to make the adjustment and get the right roles for everybody as it has in past seasons. So my hope would be at the end of that 3-week stretch, which we're through week one of that, that 3-week stretch after you get done with A&M, you have a better idea of who belongs where, and that's when you could see the team start to go on a run. They didn't score a ton of runs, but the offense didn't really let you down that much this weekend. A lot of it felt like it was the pitching and the inability to get out of innings, the inability to shut down a rally and minimize the damage. And I feel like that's something, you brought back a lot of relief option as well. That's something you can figure out once you figure out who is the right person for that moment.
Yeah. I just trust this coaching staff so much, and I trust in the talent that's on the roster. They just got to figure it out. I am not concerned. Vandy's good. Like, we knew Vandy was good.
Top 10
They're going there on the road. Like, I'm not hitting the panic button yet. I'm not there. I'm not there. I didn't expect the run rule. Like, that always stinks. Always stinks. But I'm not concerned. And dude, it would not shock me if Auburn took 2 out of 3 against Arkansas at Plainsman Park this weekend. It wouldn't surprise me. It
is different playing in Plainsman Park for a lot of teams. It is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, so you're going to get 2 games under the lights. And there is something for opposing teams about playing in the dark at Plainsman Park. If a pop flag goes above those lights, there's a good chance they're not going to get it. And nobody can tell me why that's a problem for opposing teams and not for Auburn. But there's something different about, it's just like we talk about Auburn basketball in previous seasons had been a different team at home than on the road. Same thing here. This Auburn baseball team is different at home. And Auburn's got some great giveaways this week to try to make sure they have sellouts on Thursday and Friday and Saturday.
What are the giveaways?
They're giving away a lovely tumbler on Thursday.
Ooh.
It is really nice looking. They've got the mini bats on Friday. They've got the first of the 4 trading card days on Saturday with the freshmen. You get the freshmen to sign your cards and everything. They've really done a good job of, one, building those premium spaces in the park while they work on everything else, and 2, really increasing the volume and how nice the giveaways are this year. And I think that's a sign that this coaching staff, this administration, understands how important the fans are in Plainsman Park. So make sure, if you're local, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you find one of those days to come. There's still tickets available from what I've been told. But they obviously feel like that ballpark is a differentiator. And like you said, this roster has the talent. And you know you have talent, unlike in previous seasons where you've been asking. Right. It's just figuring out the best roles for everybody. And the sooner you figure that out, the better. They do it every year. I'm giving them benefit of the doubt on this. It's just, how long does it take? And I feel like you figured some things out over the last couple weekends when you've had pitchers leave the game and you've had to fill those innings.
Yep. All right. So just another reminder, if you did not hear our reaction to Auburn winning the SEC in basketball yesterday, be sure to go check that out. Or if you haven't checked out us reacting to Auburn's draw in the bracket for the NCAA tournament, that is up as well. Lindsay, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. It's the hub for everything. Obviously, the college baseball stuff, auburndaily.com for both me and Daniel. Professional baseball, Atlanta Braves, bravestoday.com, and Marlins baseball, insidethemarlins.com.
Yeah, you can find my written work at all of those websites as well. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.